time to begin our Unit 5 of this subject. So, Unit 5, it is Business Intelligence Technology Counterparts. So, basically in this particular unit, we will be discussing about what is dataware, what is data warehousing. We will be talking about data marts and analytical data. We will also discuss here the organization of the data warehouse. Next, another important topic of this unit will be enterprise resource planning. Then we will be understanding what is distributing the enterprise. First, ERP, then business intelligence. Next, in this unit, we will be talking about the current state of affairs related to business intelligence. Later in this unit, we will be talking about CRM, that is Customer Relationship Management, ERP and Business Intelligence. We will also be discussing customers' decisions and decisions about the customers. And the last one in this unit, we will be talking about business intelligence and the financial information. So let us begin with our Unit 5. So the very first topic of our Unit 5 is data warehousing. What is this data warehouse? Data warehouse, it is a subject-oriented, integrated and time-variant store of information in support of management's decision. Basically, we are using this data warehouse to store all kind of data. It is basically a storehouse of information. Now, the main characteristics of this data warehouse are, first of all, it is subject oriented. The store of information, the information that it contains, it has to be subject oriented. On what subject this information is going to be. So, the first characteristics of our data warehouse is that it is subject oriented. Second characteristic is it is integrated. Integrated means it will integrate the information from various places and it will keep it together at one place. It is integrated. Another is it is time variant. The information that it is going to contain, it is going to vary with time. As more and more updations would be there, as more and more transactions would be there, more processing of information will be there. So, the information will vary with time. So, it is time variant. So, basically data warehouse, it is a subject oriented, integrated and time variant store of information in support of management's decision. What will this store of information do? It will help our management. It will help the organizations to take better decisions for their firm. A data warehouse, it is a relational database. Relational database here means it is going to contain all the data. So, it is a database and it is a relational database means relation here refers to the tables. We have different ways in which we can create our database. One important and common way of creating the database is to store the data in the form of tables. So, those tables in terms of database we call relation. So, data warehouse, it is a relational database. That means the data is going to be in the form of tables in this. So, data warehouse, it is a relational database that is designed for query and analysis rather than the transaction processing. Day-to-day transactions, whatever transactions are taking place into the company, those will not be the part of this data warehouse. Actually, what this data warehouse will do, it will help in the query and the analysis part of the information. Transaction will just help this data warehouse to update the information. It is basically used for the query purpose and for the analysis of data. It includes historical data, which is derived from the transaction data from single and multiple sources. So basically, it will all include whatever transactions are happening. Suppose we have a big store. Suppose we are talking about any supermarket that is there. That is a store. So all the transactions that are taking place into that particular store, whatever is happening, whatever the customers are coming, what they're buying, what they're purchasing. So that will be all the transactions. Now these transactions will contribute as a historical data. So this historical data will be accumulated, which has come from the transaction data. From multiple sources it will come and it will be stored into the data warehouse. A data warehouse, it will provide the integrated enterprise-wide historical data, and it focuses on providing the support for decision makers for data modeling and analysis. Uh, Let us say if we have a supermarket, customers are coming there, they are making some transaction. So we need to know that what things are in demand, which resources are needed to be stored in that particular market so that the sales get increased. So that all data has to be analyzed. Suppose let us say that is a rainy season. So we obviously will see that there will be more demand for the umbrellas, there will be more demand for the raincoats. So we know that that is happening in the rainy season. So all the customers who are coming to the store, they are making some transaction, they are buying these particular things during that season. So now these all transactions, they will be accumulated and they will be stored into the data warehouse, that what all transactions are happening. And using this data warehouse, now we will have the query part, we will have the analysis part, which the decision makers, the higher authority of the organization, they are going to use. So they might place a query that what is the maximum things that is on sale nowadays or during this season, or they will analyze the data that what all transactions are happening more. So after that analysis, they can take decisions that they should increase the stock of these particular accessories, which are like umbrellas or raincoat, during these particular 2 months of rainy season. So that is how it happens. The day-to-day transaction, they will be stored into the data warehouse, and depending on those transactions, the query will be raised, data analysis will be done, and the decision maker, the strategy makers of the organization or of that particular store, they will take decisions that what all uh, things they should do to increase their sale more, to gain more profit. So that is how we use this data warehouse, that will store all the information related to all the transaction and provide the people with the analysis and the query part to make better profit into their business. Now, a data warehouse, it can be viewed as a data system with certain attributes. First of all, we should know that it is a database which is designed for investigative tasks using data from various applications. In a particular organization, there are many applications that are taking place. There will be finance thing going on, there will be accounting thing going on, there will be marketing, there will be sales, different number of departments would be there. So this database which we are creating here, it is designed for the investigative task using data from all these various applications. The data that will be stored into this particular data house, it will come from various applications of the organization. Secondly, it supports a relatively small number of clients with relatively long interaction. Generally, what do we do? In this, we store relatively smaller number of clients which have long interaction, which we see they are the more profitable customers for the organization. Related to those, we will all store the information into this particular data warehouse. It includes the current and the historical data to provide a historical perspective of information. whatever transactions are taking place, all the history of those transactions, it will be stored into this data warehouse, as well as it will keep on adding the current data to that particular information. And so it will give the historical perspective of information, that in the history what all things are more into proceedings. So in that case, it will include the current as well as historical data to provide a historical perspective of information, that what information can be gained using this data. Now, next, its usage is read intensive. We basically use it for the read intensive purpose. Whatever query we can raise, we can see, we can read that what data has been generated, what information has been provided to us. So it is basically read intensive. Next, it contains a few large tables. Since it is storing all the data about various applications of the organization, so it contains basically large tables which have all the data stored into that. Talking about the structure of this data warehouse. As you can see, we have a data warehouse in the middle. Now, where is the data in the data warehouse coming from? It is coming from various data sources. Data sources basically refers to the source from where we can retrieve the data. Anywhere from where we can retrieve the data, that is known as a data source. They can be some flat files. They can be some major application like ERP, which is Enterprise Resource Planning. They can be the billing part, whatever billings are taking place into the organization, they can contribute as the data source. It can be the CRM, that is the customer relationship management. We will be talking about the CRM and ERP later on in detail in this particular unit. So the data source can be any of the application. They can be the flat files, they can be any databases, they can be the ERP, CRM, billing, any number of applications can act as a data source for this data warehouse. When we retrieve the data, there you can see, when the data is getting retrieved from these data sources, the data will not directly go into the data warehouse. There will be certain operations that will be performed on the data. That is ETL. ETL refers to extract, transform, and load. First of all, the data will be extracted from the data sources. Now, since we are gathering the data from various sources, from different sources, so all these sources, they may be using different structures, different logical structure for creating tables for themselves. So what we need to do, we need to combine, we need to transform that into a common structure. So that is why after extracting the data from these data sources, we need to transform that into a particular structure so that it can be loaded into the data warehouse. First of all, we will extract the data from the data sources, then we will transform it into a particular logical structure, then we will load this data into our data warehouse, which is an entire store of information from where we are retrieving the data from various applications. Now, the data has come onto the data warehouse. Now, what is required when the data, whatever transaction, whatever applications are happening into the organization related to all the data has got stored into the data warehouse. Now, what may be required? Reporting of the data may be required. Analytics of the data may be required, or data mining may be required. So, we might want to, or the strategy manager who is working on creating strategies for the betterment of the organization, for increasing the sales of the organization, he may want to generate the report related to any particular data. Suppose we have just talked about an example, like we want to see the purchase of our items onto the rainy season, that what things are getting sold of more. So related to that, a report can be generated that during this monsoon season, June and July, report of all the transactions. So that way the report can be created, that what items are sold the most. So that is from the data warehouse, the report can be generated. Analytics, data analytics can happen We can analyze all the data that we have in the data warehouse using the various data analytics tool. We can also check the trends of our data, which we can do with the help of data mining. So that is what the basic structure of data warehouse. In the data warehouse, the data, it is coming from various data sources. Then the data sources, when the data gets entered into the data warehouse, before that it gets extracted, transformed and loaded into the data warehouse. And from the data warehouse, we can get any report, we can do analysis of data, we can do data mining also. Now, here we have discussed one important term, that is data mining. Now, what is this data mining? The process of extracting the information to identify the patterns, the trends, and the useful data that would allow the business to take the data-driven decisions from huge set of data. That is called data mining. Basically, what we do in the data mining, we will extract some information from the data warehouse, the way we have seen. Then we will identify the patterns, the trends, and the useful data. Why are we identifying these patterns? Suppose we want to see the pattern that in this particular month the sale of these products is more. So that is a sort of pattern that is happening. We have seen that in June, July, the sale of our umbrellas was the most during that season. In the next monsoon, next year, we again see that this is again happening for the next season. So the data of years and years gets stored into these databases, and from there the data gets identified. We see the pattern that this item is getting sold of the most. So next time we have to see that whenever this month is reaching, whenever this monsoon season is reaching, we should get more and more stock of umbrellas, more and more stock of raincoats onto our store, so that they would, the customers, they come there, they get satisfied with our products, they get variety to choose from, and they can take out, they can be satisfied with the products available in the store. So that is how we identify the patterns using this data mining. We see the trends, that what is happening more, what is the trend going on for our organization's data, and they will identify the useful data that would allow the business to take the data driven decision from huge set of data. So this is called data mining, extracting information to identify pattern, trends and useful data, so that the data driven decisions can be taken from these sets of data. Data mining, it is an act of automatically searching for large store of information to find the trends and patterns that go beyond the simple analysis procedures. In this data mining, we have it utilizes complex mathematical algorithm for data segments and evaluates the probability of future events. So that is why we call our data mining also the knowledge discovery of data. This data mining, it is a huge subject in itself. If we get to study this subject data mining, we will understand that there are number of complex mathematical algorithms which are working behind identifying these trends, identifying these patterns. Here we have just taken a very simple example of extracting the information from our data. Using data mining, we use the complex mathematical algorithm for the data segments, and that is how we evaluate the probability of future event, that what is going to be the future event, what are going to be the future events, and according to that study, we can take better decision for our organization. So data mining, it is basically the act of automatically searching for large store of information to find the trends and patterns that generally we cannot do using simple analysis procedures, because this data mining, it utilizes complex algorithm for analyzing our data. So basically, what is this data mining? It is the process of extracting the information to identify the patterns, the trends and the useful data that would allow the business to make data driven decisions from these huge set of data. This is called data mining.